Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger. Up next on the GM, the Baltimore Ravens start off in last place, assessing the middle of the schedule. Do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Let's talk about it. So, as you guys know, everybody under the sun has been assessing the Baltimore Ravens schedule and talking about how difficult it is. And one must agree that we probably have the most difficult schedule as it pertains to competition in the entire league when it comes to who made the playoffs last year, when it comes to other teams making roster upgrades, so on and so forth. And so when we take a look at the schedule, we had the Baltimore Ravens coming out of the first 4 weeks 2-2. And part of that reason is because I believe, just like last year, the Baltimore Ravens are going to have an on-field adjustment period where they're learning who they really are. Admittedly, the Baltimore Ravens are in the second year of Todd Monken's system, but some of the pieces offensively are not there uh, this year as they were last year. Of course, we understand Odell Beckham's gone, good, bad, or indifferent. Whatever you think about that, we know that three of the five offensive linemen starting from last year are also gone. We know that Gus Edwards is out, J.K. Dobbins is out, and Derrick Henry is in. And although Derrick Henry is certainly an upgrade over what we had in the backfield last year, no slight to those guys from last year, we understand that when an offensive line is replacing three of the five starters and there are some questions with health at the left tackle position, you know, the only thing solid that we can rely on is Tyler Linderbaum. And so when you look at it, the Baltimore Ravens just are not the same team offensively. They're certainly not the same team defensively. We'll talk about that in another video. So I think that they're going to have to learn on the field who they are, what uh, what kind of players they have in replacement of last year's losses, and so I think they come out of the first four games 2-2. If you take a look at this article, the headline reads that pundits believe that the Ravens start off in last place after the first five games. And so let's lean into game number five, since we didn't talk about that in the last video. The game number five is Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. I do believe that this is a point in the season where if there is a must win this early, this game is a must win. Coming out of the first 4 weeks with a 2-2 record, losing to the Chiefs, and I have them also losing to the Cowboys, um, you can't really fall down 2-3 and let your other AFC foes be up 1 to 2 games ahead of you, especially with the doning schedule that the Baltimore Ravens have. And so I think that this is a game that the Baltimore Ravens actually win. When you look at this game, the Cincinnati Bengals are also going to be trying to discover who they are. Yeah, they have some upgrades along the offensive line. They they're going to put basically the same wide receiving corps on the field from last year, with the exception of Tyler Boyd. They changed out their backfield, so offensively they're going to be in discovery mode too, especially missing Joe Burrow from last year, just as we will be in discovery mode with a new defensive coordinator and a replacement at interior line, so on and so forth. And so I think that the Bengals will have an advantage offensively because they are familiar with one another a little more than what this defense will be with their new defensive coordinator. But yet and still, I think that the offense we put on the field going into week five will be enough to sustain a win. I think this is a game where we will lean heavily on the run game. I think we'll turn around and hand it off to Derrick Henry 20 to 25 times. I think he goes for over 100 yards. And and our best defense is going to be a good run game where we keep Joe Burrow and this high-powered offense off of the field. I think the Baltimore Ravens will win this game 27-24. These games have been relatively close when the Baltimore Ravens have matched up against the Bengals. And I lean into this Baltimore Ravens win because the Baltimore Ravens have not been afraid to go to Cincinnati and compete. And so I think the Baltimore Ravens come out of this week 3-2 um, and kind of feeling better about themselves with back-to-back AFC wins. When you go into week number 6, the Baltimore Ravens are facing off at home against the Washington Commanders. Washington Commanders are in rebuild mode. They moved on from quarterback Sam Howell, brought in Jalen Daniels and from LSU rookie, and so we should show up and do well against a rookie quarterback in week number 6. Uh, Daniels is really skilled. He can move with the ball. He's pretty accurate. He can throw the ball deep, and he has a good number one wide receiver in McLaurin. And they certainly try and lean on a run game, but will be new for the Commanders this year. New head coach, I think a new OC, and of course a new quarterback. So I think that the Baltimore Ravens go into this game with the advantage. Let's start on the defense side of the ball. I think the Baltimore Ravens, even though they're learning a new um, coordinator, I think by week 6 they're kind of figuring out who they are, who can make plays, what are the best positions to put the new guys in, so on and so forth. And I think this will be one of those Trenton Simpson breakout games where he finds himself feeling comfortable in this Baltimore Ravens defense. I believe the Ravens get after the quarterback. I believe they get a couple of interceptions, and I believe they get out of this game at home against the Commanders. I think they win big in this game. I think they win something like 30 to, let's go, 17. And the Baltimore Ravens are now finding their stride. Now that the Baltimore Ravens have found their groove, they now sit at 4-2, and we head into Monday Night Football to face off against Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that in this game, Tampa has a slight advantage just simply because they're going to be at home. But I think the factor that we have to account for is that Lamar Jackson typically shows up and plays outstanding in big games, especially in marquee games, Thursday night, Monday night football, Sunday night football, things of that nature. And I think this game will be no different. Although the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are stout on both sides, they have playmakers on offense, they have playmakers on defense. I think that this is another game where the Baltimore Ravens lean into who they are becoming. And I think they're going to be becoming more of a run reliant team. Not that they won't pass it, but I think they're going to be able to see what Derrick Henry true value is by the time they reach this Monday Night Football game. I think that you will see 30 carries in this game. I think that you will see 30 passes in this game. I think this game will be pretty even. And I think that the Baltimore Ravens get out of Tampa with a win. I think that the Baltimore Ravens at this point defensively, you will be able to start seeing the value of a Nate Wiggins. I think you'll start seeing the value of a TJ Tampa, especially in a game like this. Well, actually, the game against Cincinnati and a game like this where you got young, long, talented corners to face off against big time wide receivers. I think that in this game, I think one of the keys is going to be us having no turnovers and forcing Baker Mayfield into a couple of turnovers. We know who Baker Mayfield is. Now, we may not know this version of Baker Mayfield, but we know he'll give up a couple of interceptions when you put a little pressure on him. And so I think that's what happens in this game. The Baltimore Ravens are able to go into Tampa, good weather, hopefully, and come out with a win, forcing a couple of turnovers to assist in that win. I think the Baltimore Ravens get out of this game something like 28. I'm going to go 21. Baltimore pulling away in the fourth quarter with a touchdown. Now the Baltimore Ravens will head into week 8, 5-2. And so now we are going to face off against the Cleveland Browns. And we know who the Cleveland Browns are. They know who we are. There's nothing going to be hidden. There's going to be no surprises. I think the only thing we'll have to learn from now until this game happens, or at least until the beginning of the season, is who's going to be their starting quarterback. Will Deshaun Watson be healthy and ready to go? Will it be Tyler Huntley? Who knows? But we understand that they're gonna come out. Their goal is going to be to run the ball. They have a really good offensive line. We know that they're going to use the tight end. We know that they got a guy like Amari Cooper who is talented, an elite level route runner, good hands, all those kind of things. They added Jerry Judy. He's going to be trying to prove himself, and so I think that this is going to be a tough matchup. Um, I think that what you'll see is that it's going to be a battle defensively for a good portion of the game. It's going to be the winner of this game is going to be based on who makes the plays that need to be made and who limits mistakes. I think that this is a game that the Baltimore Ravens will lose in Cleveland. I think it'll be a tight game, but I think the Baltimore Ravens lose this game 24-21, and they fall to 5-3. Next up, if I'm remembering the schedule correctly, next up will be the Denver Broncos, and I believe we go back home to face off against Denver. I think the Baltimore Ravens clearly have the advantage in this game where they're at home, number one, coming off a loss. They're going to be energized, the crowd will be enthused, and Denver is just trying to find out who they are. I think we take full advantage of Denver being in a rebuild situation, and I think this game is a blowout. I think we get after the quarterback. I think we scheme up some things to cause some confusion. I think we get a couple of turnovers in this game. I think we get out this game pretty handily. Although Denver has a tendency to be stout on defense, I think we get out of this game something like 30-15. I think it'll be fairly easy. And when I say easy, that's no disrespect. When I say easy, I'm talking about the margin of victory. And I think we're sitting our starters by the 8-minute mark in the fourth quarter. I think we run and throw um, this game to victory and sit our starters early. The Baltimore Ravens then move to 6-3. Um, the next game up, I believe, is the Cincinnati Bengals. Once again, we are at home against the Bengals, one that gives us the advantage. But we understand the Bengals have no fear coming into um, the bank and playing against the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is a game where the Baltimore Ravens must win. Now, although we have a winning record, although we sit at I believe the record, if I'm counting correctly, will be 6-3. This is a must win. Why? Because we cannot lose uh, a second division game with Pittsburgh coming up the following week. I think that this is a game that injuries show up in. What I mean is not that people get injured in this game, but I think at this point of the season, we're midway. I think that this is where you'll see some injuries. I think you'll see um, you know the importance of depth, and I think this is a game where you see Devontae Walker break out. I think the Baltimore Ravens will use him. I think pretty consistently up until this point, and I think this is a game where the Baltimore Ravens will make an effort to go deep and go deep repeatedly. And I think this is a game he shows up in. I'm predicting he catches 5 balls for over 90 yards and a touchdown. I think the Baltimore Ravens get out of this game with the win. I'm going to say something like 27-21, still a relatively close game. But I think being at home gives us that advantage. And I think we beat Cincinnati and we move to either 6-3 or 7-3. I've lost count at this point. The next game up is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we are going to Pittsburgh. Um, I'm not going to call this a must win, but I think that at this point we would have all this will be our fourth division game. We need to sit at the end of this game with the Pittsburgh. We need to be sitting even or 3-1. We cannot be 1-3 or anything like that. We would have already played Cleveland. We would have played Cincinnati twice, and now we're playing Pittsburgh. So we need to be at least even in the division or 3-1. We cannot be less than that. And so I believe that this is a game where by now Pittsburgh has already determined who they are, right? I think they're going to uh, certainly make an effort to run the ball as they have rebuilt their defense. This will be our first time seeing Patrick Queen and Deshaun Elliott, two Baltimore Ravens former Baltimore Ravens players. I think that this game will be a battle. I think both teams will be motivated. I think both teams will be out to prove who they are in the division. But unfortunately, I believe this is a game that the Baltimore Ravens fall in. Part of that reason why this is when you're really going to see the Baltimore Ravens offensive line tested. When you think about what the Pittsburgh Steelers have along that defensive line, starting with TJ Watt, and then all of the other solid players, Hayward and the other interior defensive linemen. I think they're going to put pressure on our offensive line. And this is when I think a lack of continuity and inexperience is going to show up, especially with the new addition, Patrick Queen. You know, Patrick Queen is a really good blitzer, and I certainly think that Mike Tomlin will have him deployed with a consistent blitz off the edge, interior, so on and so forth. They have a good back end, and I think that this is when you see the offensive line and our outside weaponry exploited. And I think the Baltimore Ravens fall in this game. No blowout, but I think we lose something like, I'm gonna go something odd, 22-17, something like that. So after the Baltimore Ravens lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, we would now sit at 7-4. Not really a time to panic. I don't know when the trade deadline is, don't know when our bye week is, but it definitely puts us in position not to attain the same regular season success as we had last year. And maybe we don't even need that same level of success. I don't think this team will be as dominant as it was last year, but I think that as we close out week 11 and head into game 12, I think we will be just as focused. Um, the Baltimore Ravens would have had a successful middle of the schedule. And as they gear up for the last 6 games, I think all of uh, what they needed to know about themselves, they would have figured out. They would sit 2-2 in the AFC North, and they would need to really kind of win both those games, another game against Pittsburgh and another game against Cleveland. They will need to dominate the AFC competition and continue their winning ways against the NFC in the Lamar Jackson era. All of those things I think are attainable in the late part of the season, but we're just going to have to wait and see. I think the trade deadline will be big for the Baltimore Ravens this year because I think that at the trade deadline, we will already have noticed what we need, and other teams will have noticed who they're not, meaning they're going to be able to move off of some of their big time players if they're not really in competition for a playoffs or a Super Bowl. So let me know what you guys want me to know, man, about the schedule. Do you guys think I was too hard on the Ravens, or do you think 7-4 is about right for where they sit? Uh, as far as their roster, as far as all of the changes that they have had to endure. Do you think 7-4 is about right for them? Wrap it all up. The Baltimore Ravens said it's 7-4 after 11 games. I think two things that could play a factor in their record is the trade deadline and also when the bye week is. I'm not too sure of either one of those factors, but I think both could play a part in the Baltimore Ravens 7-4 record. Could they be worse? I think they could. Could they be better? I think they could. But I think with everything being equal, no injuries, the current roster, so on and so forth, I think the Baltimore Ravens are in the middle of the pack and in a playoff hunt for sure at this time of the season. But they will need a late season charge, and they will need to begin to insert their dominance on teams as they go down the stretch. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM. Let me know what you want me to know about the content. I'm out.